Hi everybody, it's Rob Mannix, and I'm here with my wife Karen.
Hi, welcome back, everybody.
Well, we're doing our Bible study again because we can't get together, and we're really sad about that. I wish that we could be together at Temple Lutheran Church, but I miss you guys very much, and I hope that you guys are doing okay. You know, we're doing okay here. We're still healthy and we're still safe, which is a good thing. And I haven't heard any news from anybody in the congregation that's been sick. So we hope that you're all doing well. And if you are having any problems, just give us a call or send us an email. You have our email and everything. You can get in touch with us, and we'll be reaching out and keep reaching out to our congregation with all our prayers and love and just support during this time. If you need anything, please get in touch with us. So we're going to get back to our Bible stories. It's Bible storytelling time.
Okay.
And we were studying the Gospel according to Mark.
Right.
And if you want to review what we've done before, you can go back and look at the other videos that we submitted last week. Hopefully this week we'll have a little bit of a shorter time together.
Right.
Because we don't want to make it so long. So today we're going to talk about Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 20. And do you want to, we'll read it like a paragraph at a time, okay?
Okay.
You want to start with the first paragraph of
Sure,
Mark chapter
I'll get
5?
started.
Okay.
So, Mark chapter 5, beginning at the first chapter.
The
And
first verse.
I'm sorry, you're right, the first verse. And this is actually one whole story. And in my Bible, it titles it Jesus Heals the Gerasene Demoniac. Okay. We'll see if this is zombies or what this is. They came to the other side of the sea. They was Jesus and his disciples. Remember, they were in the boat when we left them last in chapter 4. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when he had stepped out of the boat, immediately a man out of the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. He lived among the tombs, and no one could restrain him anymore, even with a chain. For he had often been restrained with shackles and chains, but the chains he wrenched apart, and the shackles he broke in pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always howling and bruising himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and bowed down before him, and he shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." For he had said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he, the man who lived in the cemetery, replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." He begged Jesus earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now there on the hillside was a great herd of swine, also known as pigs, and they were feeding. And the unclean spirits begged him, "Send us into the swine, let us enter them." So he, Jesus, gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and were drowned in the sea.
The swineherds ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came to see what it was that had happened. They came to Jesus and saw the demoniac sitting there, clothed and in his right mind, the very man who had had the legion, and they were afraid. Those who had seen what had happened to the demoniac and to the swine reported it. Then they began to beg Jesus to leave their neighborhood. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed by demons begged him that he might be with them. But Jesus refused and said to him, "Go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown for you." And he went away and began to proclaim the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed.
Whoa.
That's the end of our story. I think we should pray.
Okay.
Dear God, Thank you for this story, and thank you for this time that we're going to get together and talk about this story. Be with us as we explore it and talk about it, and help us to understand what you have in store for us. Amen.
Amen.
Wow, that was a crazy story. That was
Okay.
I feel like that was like Halloween, you know, like some kind of horror story, a really scary story, you know. And do you remember what was happening before, right before this?
That's when they were in the boat, and the great big storm came up.
That's
and
right.
Jesus and all his disciples were in the boat, and the storm came up, and it's little tiny boat in a big rough sea.
Right.
If you've
That
ever
sounds scary,
been
too.
right, and
That
really
sounds
choppy
scary.
waters, and
Yeah.
Jesus was able to stand up and say, "What are you worried about?
Yeah.
I'm here. I got it under control."
Jesus was
It was
sleeping in
fine.
the boat before
Jesus was
before
very
he got
chill.
up. He was
Yes.
real chill. That's right.
Yeah.
Now we got this other scary story. We got a man. He's living in a graveyard.
Right.
This is a little weird. He
Okay.
has no clothes on at all. He breaks
Okay.
chains when people try to hold him down and tie him up with chains. He breaks the chains.
Right.
That sounds like something out of a horror movie too.
Right.
He howling day and night. This definitely sounds like a little bit like a werewolf kind of situation to me. I don't know.
Combination werewolf, zombie.
Definitely, yeah,
something.
living dead kind of thing in the graveyard, and he bruises himself with stones. I don't know what that's all about, but it definitely sounds
Right.
scary and crazy for sure.
Right.
So Jesus and the 18, the apostles, they get
Okay.
out of the boat, and this guy comes running up to them right away
Okay.
and bows down in front of Jesus. And that, like, out of the
Okay.
blue, it
Right.
even says the word immediately. It's like
Immediately.
right away, as soon as they get out the boat, this guy comes running out, no clothes on.
I don't know. I think that would make me a little. If I were watching.
If you were an apostle,
Well, yeah. I mean, I would be a little worried. Like, okay, so this guy that I think is really important and really a good guy.
yeah.
What's going on if these demons
Yeah.
are bowing down?
That's true
They-
too. And
yeah.
they know who Jesus is. That's what else is cool about the story.
That's true. They seem to get it
We
before
know
a
that
lot of other people.
when the heavens opened and God said to Jesus that you're my son, but now we have this other demons
Right.
saying this
Right.
about Jesus, the son. You're the son of the Most High God, which
Right.
is really cool. And Jesus asked
Really accurate.
Jesus asked the demons, "Who are you?" And they say something that's really weird too. They say, "We're legion," and legion is like a whole lot.
Okay.
A legion was like a group of army people in
Okay.
in the Roman army.
Okay.
They were like 6,000 people
Whoa.
in a legion.
Wow.
Or it could have been like a battalion, like a big group of them, like
Okay.
2,000 of them, which corresponds to the number that we know about the sheep herd. You
Right.
know, so there's 2,000 demons living inside of this dude. Is what we.
Sounds like tight quarters.
That sounds
But
a
think
little
about the other.
uncomfortable.
But think about the other thing. There are all kinds of words that Jesus
Yeah.
could have chosen to indicate to mean that a whole lot of these demons were inside of him.
Yeah.
He could have used a gaggle.
Well, Jesus
He
didn't.
could have used huge.
The demon
or the
did.
demons did.
Yeah.
But the demons specifically chose a military term.
Yeah.
So imagine that what is going on inside of you literally feels like you have
Oh my gosh.
thousands of army guys.
That
Like
would be uncomfortable.
battling it out and
It definitely
fighting
sounds
in you day
uncomfortable.
and night. I think I would be dashing myself against the
Yeah,
rocks too. Like,
that's true.
pull it, guys, if I
Definitely
can.
uncomfortable. Definitely
smash
a little
you.
crazy.
Yeah, maybe I
a
can get
little
this to stop.
Not good.
Right.
Very uncomfortable. And they say, "Don't send us away." They don't want to go away. They say, "Send us into the pigs." And Jesus doesn't really even send them into the pig. He just says, "Yeah, you can go ahead. Go ahead." He gives them
Okay.
permission to go into the pigs. The pigs are up on a hill. They run off the hill, off a cliff, into the ocean, into the sea, right in front of them, right in front of the apostles, right in front of Jesus, right in front of the guy who was possessed before. In
And the
front of,
swineherds.
there's these
Right?
other
The
people that
were-
are taking care of the pigs,
Right.
and they're like, "What just happened?" You know, they must be a little bit scared also. They're like, what is going on? And
Well,
they
and
run
their
away.
livelihood just went into the sea.
I know, that's not too cool either. But they run away.
Okay.
And they run into town and they're like, hey, we gotta come on out here. You don't know what just happened.
You are not
All the pigs
come.
just ran into there. And there's a guy in a boat and that had to be a little weird. It's
Yeah.
definitely scary. Definitely different, you know. There's something new going on, something different going on, and they come back. The people that were herding the pigs come back with the people from town, and they see sitting there the same guy
Right, but
who had been
now,
howling to the
Right.
to the moon and to the sun day and night, howling, running in and out of the graveyard. No clothes on. Now he's got clothes on,
Right.
and he's sitting there in his right mind,
Right.
just having a conversation with Jesus and the A-team, the apostles. He's just sitting there, and they say to Jesus, the people from the town are like, "We think you ought to leave. We don't feel real good about this. This feels a little uncomfortable to us. We would like you to go, please." And that's sort of weird. That happens, though. You know, in this Bible story, that's what happens. They see this guy, they're scared, and sometimes when we get scared, we just want to get out of the situation.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they just wanted him to leave. And so the guy that Jesus healed, the guy that used to have all the demons inside him,
Right,
he
right.
wants to go with Jesus.
right.
And that's
Which-
sort of nice, right?
Well, and it makes
I think
sense.
you wanna go.
If
I
you've
would
been
wanna go.
avoided by this whole town
Yeah.
for however many years because you had this awful thing going on inside of you, and now there comes this guy who your demons recognize is really important,
Yeah.
and who's probably the first person who's treated him nicely
And he healed
in
him right
a
away.
really,
Boom.
really long time. So think about, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like there was nobody who understood you, nobody who got you, and when there's
Yeah.
finally somebody who comes along and says, no, I really want to hear your story.
Yeah.
No, I think you're important. I think you're important enough that I know you can do better than what you're doing right
I
now.
like this idea that he saw him. You see,
Right.
Jesus saw the guy who was inside. The person, not who was inside, the person who was there
Right,
that had all the things going wrong inside of him.
right.
Jesus could actually see who it was. And so he
Right.
wanted to stick with Jesus.
Sure.
But I love what happens. You see, Jesus doesn't say, yes, come on with me. Jesus says, I have something for you to do.
Right. I have a
He
job.
says, I got a job for you. I have a mission for you. And he sends him out on a mission. He says, go out and spread the good news about what God has done for you, what the Lord has done for you, what I've done for you, what God has done for you. He's freed you from all this bad stuff in your life. I want you to go home
Right.
to your friends. I love
Not-
that idea too.
not the
back to the
cemetery.
graveyard, not back to the
But to
tombs,
home.
but home. And he lives in this place called Decapolis. There's 10 different cities. He goes around to all these 10 different cities, and we're going to go back to these cities in chapter 7. When we get to chapter 7, we're going to hear more about these cities, and they're already going to know a little bit about Jesus. And you know why they know a little bit about Jesus? Because
Because this guy told his story.
this guy just told his story.
All he did
and
is-
sometimes that's all it takes is telling your story to other people.
Right.
And then you get to spread the good news of Jesus. I have a few words for us today to talk about, okay? I don't know if you can see this, but this is sort of what happens in our
Might be.
stories today.
Backward.
Okay? I can bring it a little closer. So we talked about a storm and then the calming of the storm, right? We talked about the crazy guy and then he became sane, right? We talked about the chaos that he was experiencing, the chaos, and then it got to be calm again. We talked about how he was acting like an animal, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then he acts more like people,
Right.
right? And then there's these other words that I wanted to talk about: unclean and clean, right? There's clean and unclean in the story, and then there's Gentile and Jew. That's another thing that's going on in our story. And then there's struggle
Mm-hmm.
and peace.
Right.
And those are just some of the different stories. So it's like a dichotomy, sort of like two different things going on at the same time, or a movement from
Okay.
one thing into another
Okay.
thing, right? Sort of like a
Mhm.
movement. So
Okay.
we had the storm
Right.
happening, like the storm and everything, and Jesus on his own commanded the storm. So he commands the elements, everything
Right.
in the
Even
world,
the weather.
even the weather, to calm down.
Okay.
Then we got the crazy guy. I know you probably don't prefer that word, but the person who has some issues, he
Right.
makes him sane. He gives him peace inside of himself. He
Right.
calms the chaos of his life and gives him calm and peace inside of himself. And there was animals. The guy was acting like an animal,
Right.
and now he's acting
Okay.
like a person, right?
Right.
Now, unclean and clean. See, we've been talking about Jesus going around and how people are mad at him because he's eating
Right.
with people they call sinners, and
Right.
they're not washing their hands right.
Right.
They're doing things on the Sabbath day, things like that. We talked
Right.
about that during all this time while we've been reading the Bible and stuff,
Okay.
and that's just a separation. You see, it's very important for some of us in life. We separate things from each other. You know, we make different groups and classifications
Okay.
all the time. We're doing
Okay.
that. We're grouping things in different things, and clean and unclean is one of those groupings that in Bible story times it was very important to only eat clean foods and not unclean foods. And believe it or not, pigs and swine pork was an unclean food.
Right.
And
Right.
so the Jews only ate clean food. So that's one of the things that this story sort of brings out. I wanted to point that out to the kids so they knew
Okay.
in the future what they were reading about. Another two words that I talked about was Gentile and Jew. You see, the people that lived where the demoniac lived,
Right.
Gerasene, the Decapolis area, those people were mostly Gentiles.
Okay.
So they were Palestinian Gentiles. They
Right.
didn't practice the Jewish faith. They didn't practice the faith that
Right.
Jesus did. They didn't go to temple all the time, things like that. They
Right.
knew about Jewish people, just like you might know about Jewish people too. But they were Gentiles. They didn't follow that faith
Right.
tradition.
Mhm.
So we're sort of like Gentiles because we're Christian.
Right.
We don't follow the Jewish faith. So we're Gentiles. And I love this idea that this guy, who used to be the demoniac, the guy that was possessed, he becomes Jesus' first missionary to the Gentiles.
Oh, that's
see?
right.
He's
Yeah.
spreading good news about what Jesus did for him to people who aren't Jewish. So he's
Right.
he
Because
is a
most of-
missionary to the Jews, and I
Right.
love that. And so that brought me another word that I wanted to teach
Okay.
everybody today, and that's this word here. It says evangelist. Evangelist, all
Right.
right? And you see right in the middle of it, it has ANGEL, angel. So right in the middle of evangelist is the word angel. And
Right.
that's another word, just like gospel means
Right.
good news. Well, this is the spreader of good news.
Okay.
The person that brings good news to other people. And angels do that too. They're messengers. The word
Right.
angel is like a messenger. And so evangelists are messengers, and they
Of
spread the
good
good news
Okay.
of Jesus Christ to other people. And so he was that first
Right.
first
He was the first
evangelist
person, right?
to
Well,
the
and-
Gentiles.
to the Gentiles, because right, 'cause
Yes.
certainly other people had started to spread the news about Jesus. People
We knew
had
about that
encountered him, that
already.
sort of thing. But mostly it was
To Jewish people.
well, it
in
was a
Jerusalem,
Jewish
and-
person who would meet Jesus or see what he was doing,
Yeah.
and then go tell other
Jewish people.
Jewish people.
That's right.
That's
yeah.
This is the first time we see somebody who is definitely not a Jewish person, but
Right.
Jesus is still reaching out to that person.
I know, I
Still
love
wants
that.
to love that
I
person and
love
heal
that.
them, and then through that,
He's reaching other people.
he's
too.
reaching a lot more people
So
other than
this
just
whole-
Jewish people,
I want to go back to this other idea of the separation, the differencing
right?
of things. You know, we got differences, right?
Right.
So there's differences in all our lives, right? And then one of the things that happens sometimes, and it happened even in Bible storytelling
Right.
times, was a segregation. So we had people on the one side of the Sea of Galilee over
Okay.
here on the, I guess that would be the western side of the Sea
Okay.
of Galilee.
Right.
That was the Gentile area. And on the other side, where Jerusalem was, that was the Jewish area. So there was a segregation that was happening. And Jesus has crossed the Sea of Galilee to the Gentile area. And I love that idea that Jesus is reaching out to crossing the sea and that whole idea. And then there's another separation that's happening in the story. That's not just the separation of the Gentiles and the Jews, but also the self-segregation that's happening in the story. You see, that demoniac, when he's acting like an animal and he's running around like a crazy person in the graveyards, and he
Right.
has no clothes on.
Right.
He is self-segregating. He is separating himself
Right.
from the rest of his community, the rest of his society. He's not a part of anything, you know. He's not
Right.
a part of community. And somehow that just brought me back to today.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
We're deciding to not be with one another in person
Right.
because of we're trying to slow down the spread of the
Right.
disease of COVID-19. But what we're making sure that we do is, even though we can't meet each other at Temple Lutheran Church, or we can't go visit one another at our houses,
Right.
we're still trying to find other ways to continue to be in community.
Community.
Right. So
So that's
things
the
like
bringing together.
right. So
Instead of the separation, we're trying to bring people together. We're trying to spread the good news. That's what we want to spread. We want to spread that good news about Jesus and the bringing together,
Right.
and that Jesus wants us to be in community with each other
Right.
and with God.
right.
And that was the main point of our story today. For
Exactly.
me, that was what I wanted to get to.
Well,
you
and
know.
so in that way, let's think. Sunday mornings at 9:30,
Yep.
we'll still have a worship service. It'll be different because we have to do kind of watch and participate from home, while a few people are willing to go in
Yeah.
and work the service for us, including Pastor Tim. And then opportunities like this, kind of thank you so much, Rob, for putting the Bible
thank you for
study
being
up
here with me,
online,
too.
as well as other ways. I know we've done things in our family, like had a FaceTime dinner.
Yeah,
We
that
have
was cool.
other people in our family that live different places, and we've all gotten on some kind of video
Device,
app
yeah.
so that we could see one another and have dinner together,
Right.
but still stay physically separate and safe
Right.
to try to keep each other healthy.
And maybe we can have a virtual Bible school time sometime, or something like that too.
Maybe.
We'll see what happens in
Mhm.
the next couple of weeks. Look forward to seeing you guys again.
Okay.
Miss you very much. Let's pray before we go, though.
Okay.
Dear God, thank you for letting us have this time together. Please keep us safe and healthy during this time of separation. Thank you for the good news of Jesus Christ, and help us to be evangelists to each other and spread your good news and be in community together. Amen.
Amen.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.